Hello, welcome to the Wildline Podcast. I'm your host, Dan. This is a podcast about movies and how much money they make at the box office. Today is going to be the normal weekend review show for the weekend of February 1st through the 3rd, 2019. It was a very quiet weekend. It's looking to shape up to be the worst Super Bowl weekend since, I want to say, like 20 years ago. I think that's what Deadline was saying. Also, I think the worst weekend since 2017 overall. Wasn't any super big wide releases, new ones this weekend. A lot of holdovers, a lot of holiday holdovers too, and also some awards movies still sticking around, sort of waiting until this Oscar season is over. So let's walk through the top 10. I'll do a little bit of a deeper dive on sort of the limited releases just to see what's going on there, because we are in Oscar season. It's not too far off now to be at the end of the month. And then we'll talk about what's going to happen here for the rest of February. So coming in at number one this weekend, hot off the presses, these numbers. Glass, number one, 9.5 million for the weekend, a 49.5% drop, which is okay. It's still in 36, actually almost 3,700 theaters right now. $2,600 per theater average. Sitting at 88.6 million for Glass in its third weekend. So the story on Glass is this. This is an underperformance. Going into opening weekend, there was a lot of buzz, 60, 70. I was thinking even over $100 million. I was totally wrong, of course. It's not the first or last time that will happen. The hype for Glass was felt to me like an MCU DCEU movie. It was comic book related. Split was such a strong movie. Right now, Glass is sitting about 10% below where Split was at the same point in its run. So it is a significant underperformance. Is it a flop? Probably not. I think it still finds a way to break even. I think Glass is going to do quite well on streaming platforms, and once it hits digital, I think it will make a lot of this money back up. The TV deals and stuff like that should be okay. I don't see it losing $50 million. I see it kind of break even in the sort of tens of millions in profit probably, but it's not going to be a $100 million profit movie or a $200 million profit movie, which is exactly what Universal and Blumhouse wanted out of this. And I talked a lot obviously I took last weekend off. I was out of town. But the week before I did talk about Glass's initial performance, so I don't want to do too much of a deep dive into it. But just thinking about it now that we're sort of in its third weekend, it is still bizarre to me how bad Glass has performed versus expectation. It still doesn't add up. I have a friend who is a teacher, and he was basically telling me that the younger people weren't anywhere near as excited for Glass as they were for Split, which then again just also blows my mind, because you would think that people who are remember Split was like out of the blue. It was an M. Night Shyamalan movie getting released in January. It had that really cool trailer, but there wasn't really the Unbreakable backstory involved at all. We didn't know it was part of Unbreakable until Split came out and we saw that final scene. So the fact that the under 25 crowd, the teenage crowd, was more into Split must have been like a word of mouth situation after opening weekend. It did do quite well opening weekend. So the big question that's in my head is, why did Split have that hype and that bounce when it came out, whereas Glass kind of shattered, right? It just sort of, everything was really puffed up. The social media campaigns were blaring a year out from this getting released, and so you kind of have to wonder why it felt so flat when it opens. It is running neck and neck with Split. It's going to end up below Split, though. The expectation for Universal was, I would say, internally, they thought 60 to 70 opens, does about 150 to 180. Easy. And it's not going to get anywhere near that. So I think they misjudged perhaps the audience and how the audience for Split was created. I think they misjudged the depth that people have, or interest that they have, in the M. Night Shyamalan Unbreakable Split Glass universe. I just don't think there's an interest there as there is for an MCU or DCEU situation. Um, and I think there's a lot of sort of assumptions that were made. Oh, people are going to show up for this because it's M. Night Shyamalan. Nope. People are going to show up for this because it's got Samuel L. Jackson and the whole crew from the last movie, the whole set of movies. It's no, this is not going to work. Right? There has to be some other element in play here that gets people to show up. And if you ask yourself, why did people show up for Split? People showed up for Split. I don't go to opening weekends that often because I hate going to see a movie with a crowd. It's like the worst experience ever for me. I always go when it's like a Tuesday afternoon and I'm like alone. It's an amazing experience. So there was something about Split that made me go see it with a group of people. And I was like, what was it about that movie? What was it about that, the marketing that got people so engaged? And I think that type of marketing was just missing from Glass. The trailers were good. You had Sarah Paulson in the trailers, who was fantastic. Really like, just like a very, I don't know, there's something about her that really is very engaging. She can play basically any part, and she always sort of draws you in as a character. No matter if whatever character she's playing, she just has this sort of magnetic presence on screen. And that was a great part of the Glass trailer. But I think ultimately it felt really muddled, like what the whole story was about. There wasn't really a lot of hook in the marketing. And I think that's really what it boils down to here, is that Universal and Blumhouse had assumed because M. Night Shyamalan was doing it, it was the sequel to Split and Unbreakable, that alone would get this to a $50-60 million opening on to 150-180 domestic run. And those were false assumptions. They needed something more here. They needed something, especially to get the under 25 crowd to come out and see this. And the fact that it's not a very good movie at all really hurts it in the long run. The drops haven't been that bad. Like, I think it's like 50% drop and now another 50% drop, which is pretty good for a movie like this. So it's playing decent with its legs, but the opening was too low for it to do any real damage. So, where do they go from here? I don't know. I think Glass will end up, it's not going to hit 150. I'll tell you that much. It's really not even going to come close to that. So it's going to fade here pretty rapidly, around, I don't know, maybe the 120 mark ish or something like that. That's not a good run for this movie. And so, I think M. Night Shyamalan and Universal and Blumhouse will probably keep working together. We're not going to see a Glass 2 probably. It just doesn't have the cachet right now to the nice thing about this though, and I will say this, one of the reasons that why M. Night Shyamalan has been given the opportunity to do this movie is because a lot of it is him getting the financing, and the production budget is insanely low at $20 million. Compare Glass to a Wonder Woman or an Aquaman, which production costs, push $200 million easy. So this is 1/10 the cost in terms of the production. And it's not like the marketing is, probably a lot, $100 million, I would say, for Glass alone. But for Wonder Woman and those other MCU movies, like let's say Captain Marvel that's coming out, the marketing is going to be well over $130 million worldwide, probably pushing to 150. So, Universal and Blumhouse and M. Night Shyamalan did a really good job of creating basically a value product that, if it does anywhere close to ballpark expectations, is going to make money. And I think that's kind of where this is at. Because the production budget was so low, this will do okay in the long run, but it is a pretty significant underperformance overall. And I think that mostly has to do with the poor quality of the film, which I think led to a kind of a middling and boring marketing campaign for Glass. And so Glass is already a big story of 2019 so far. It is a significant underperformance. On the other side of this is the upside, which has been a significant overperformance. 8.8 million this weekend in number 2, a 26% drop. It's added 200 theaters this weekend. So the upside is in its 4th weekend. It has made $75.6 million so far. STX really hit a home run with this. It felt like when this was coming out, it might be getting dumped in that post New Year's slot. But this one has really taken advantage of a very quiet January. Normally, January is holiday holdover season. It's always one of the quietest months, but a lot of the business that happens in January, what separates it from, say, like a September, which is also very quiet, are the movies that come out in December, just keep playing and playing. Last year we had The Last Jedi, we had Jumanji, we had Greatest Showman. These movies were dropping 20% every week, week over week. And especially Jumanji and The Greatest Showman, I felt like I was talking about them for like 3 months straight, and I was. So that's one of the reasons why January tends to do okay. This year, though, those holiday holdovers have not really played that strong. One, there is no Star Wars movie that was released in December, so that completely changes the complexion of January, right? So last year, Last Jedi was playing really well through January. The year before, Rogue One, Force Awakens. And so without a Star Wars movie this year, there's no Solo. We all know Solo should have been released in December, right? They should have taken the extra 6 months, edited it more, reshot some stuff, made it better, put it out in December, and it would still be playing strong to this weekend. That didn't happen. And the movies that I thought, and a lot of people thought, would be playing strong all the way through, Valentine's Day here, which is getting closer, only a couple weeks away, not even. Mary Poppins, it's Mary Floppins. It just did not connect with audiences. And that was the perfect movie. That was supposed to be The Greatest Showman this year. The perfect movie to have strong legs for 2-3 months. Just didn't happen. Bumblebee underperformed. Aquaman's still doing great. It's number 4. We'll talk about that in a bit. Spider-Man's also doing well. But there just wasn't a glut of holiday movies that had super strong legs, and there's no Star Wars movie. And so this January, I think, is the worst since 2011. So very quiet. And the upside, there's a vacuum, and it excelled and, has done so well. I think because of that vacuum, but also because it's kind of counter programming. It's a movie that we don't see a lot of anymore. It's not a comic book movie. It's not an action movie. It's an adult drama comedy. Very sort of kind of feels like a family movie on some level, but at the same time not. It's the type of movie that would feel normal 20 years ago, but doesn't feel normal at all right now. And I think because of the quietness of this January and its sort of counter-programming style, that's one of the reasons why it's done so well. And SDX needed this. They needed a hit because they've been down in the dumps for the last few years. I can't remember the last hit they've had. So they're very happy about this performance. And it really helps, Kevin Hart and Bryan Cranston. Bryan Cranston, as he sort of transitions still out of the Breaking Bad shadow, which is going to be kind of the shadow for the rest of his career. This helps him a lot, and it helps Kevin Hart over, the controversy over hosting the Oscars, then not hosting the Oscars. It turns out he can still get people to show up to a movie because of his star power. And so the upside is a great story so far. It's kind of the direct opposite of Glass. It's a significant overperformance to expectation. We'll see where it goes. If it keeps dropping like this, it could easily go into $100 million. Which is more than like a movie like The Bucket List, which you would assume, was a huge movie with big stars. I think it only didn't even make it to 100. So I think Upside could probably beat that film. So Upside, really good stuff. Number 3 this weekend, Miss Bala from Sony, 6.7 million. This is a brand new release. 2,200 theaters. Per theater average was just over 3,000 per theater. So 6.7 is the total here. It's first weekend. This one's kind of a mystery. What was going on here? It's a remake of a Mexican film. It wasn't shot for too much. It was $15 million. I don't think Sony expected this to do very well at all. It did $650K in its previews. I think Sony, I don't know what they were expecting though. It's like with a movie like this, it just doesn't seem like there's a real good business model for releasing this in theaters anymore. It definitely feels more like a streaming service debut on like a Netflix, which has a deep footprint in a lot of the Spanish-speaking market. In terms of the audience who showed up for Miss Bala, it makes sense. 42% were Latino. Normally, that's around a 20 to 23% of the average audience. So way over indexed on Latino crowd. White crowd was 34%. The average movie is about 53%. So obviously, Latino really took up a large proportion of this audience, and a lot less white folks. 12% African American, which is right in line with the average movie going audience, and 10% Asian, which was a little bit higher than normal. So what's interesting about Miss Bala, though, is males over 25 were the predominant crowd. I guess that's because of Gina Rodriguez, maybe. There's big fans of her. Look, this movie is sort of... It feels kind of out of time. In the same way that Upside kind of feels out of time, Miss Bala, it just doesn't seem like there's a great strategy here for this to make money in a theatrical release. I don't know why Sony did it. It seems also like it should have been like an awards contender, but it's not because it's terrible. 27% Rotten Tomatoes. I kind of want to see what the audience score said. No cinema score in this. I don't know why. I don't think it was released in enough theaters. Gina Rodriguez is a really good actress, though. I will say this. I've always enjoyed her. She was great in like the most random stuff. She was great in like Deepwater Horizon or Deep Horizon, what the hell the movie was called. She was great in that. Side character, but awesome. Audience score is 61% for Miss Bala. I don't know. I mean, it just doesn't make a lot of sense why they're releasing it. They're dumping it, it seems like, in January, or I guess February now. So I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Like, it's sitting at 6.7. It'll be lucky to do probably like close out at like 15 maybe if it's lucky. Although it does kind of seem like it would be very front loaded if it's very like the Latino audience is just showing up for this opening weekend and kind of dissipating in the second weekend. So maybe it goes below 15 million. We'll see. We'll keep an eye on that one. But that was number 3, kind of a quiet opener there. Number 4 was Aquaman, 4.7 million in its 7th weekend, 34% drop. Great drop. Lost 200 theaters, still in about 3,000 theaters. Per theater average is about 1,600. Total take so far for Aquaman, $323 million. I've talked about this for about 2 months straight, so I don't want to spend too much time on it, but it's a fantastic performance. This now, like, with some distance, it's a grand slam. Man of Steel did 291. Justice League did 229. It beat both of those movies pretty handedly. It's going to beat Suicide Squad, which was at 325. It's probably going to beat Batman versus Superman, which was at 330. Just think about that. Aquaman is going to beat Batman versus Superman. Like, it just doesn't make it, like, it's hard to compute. So what does that say? It just basically says, like, if you make a movie, doesn't matter what character the movie's about. Aquaman's not like the most, like, you know, top shelf comic book character that exists. But if you make an engaging movie, if people really like it, word of mouth will spread. If you have the branding, the DCEU behind it, people are going to show up and they're going to keep showing up. And I think that, you know, like Aquaman it's going to help revitalize the entire DCEU without a doubt. And Aquaman, Wonder Woman, give me a couple more, and then we got another Justice League movie happening. But we'll keep an eye on Aquaman as well as it continues its fantastic run. Number 5 was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, 4.4 million, 28% drop. This is one of those holiday holdovers that is doing quite well. Still in about 2,200 theaters. Per theater average just shy of 2K per theater. Total take so far for Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, 175. And then when you factor in the international take on this, it's probably it's already at like the $300 million mark in terms of like revenue that's going to pull in eventually when you get in all the TV stuff and digital stuff going on. So it's definitely in the profit range for Sony, which I guess I don't know if I misread this movie early on, the performance. Sometimes I do like gut checks and hot takes. I was like, oh, this is terrible. And obviously you have to wait and see with a lot of these movies. And I think with Spider-Man, I read this one way too early. In the negative sense. I think it's going to do okay. I think it's going to make a little bit of a profit, and I think it's going to do great on all the streaming platforms. So I think it's a little bit of a win, I'm going to say, for Sony, which I wasn't even thinking that even a week ago or 2 weeks ago, but it does, now that I'm looking a little bit more in depth at the numbers, it does look like it's going to make a profit here in its 8th week so far in its run. So we'll keep it on that one. If it keeps dropping, I mean, is 200 a possibility for this domestically? It could be. Probably not, but You never know. It's still making 4.4 million in its 8th weekend. I mean, that's pretty darn good. So what else is next? So Green Book was number 6, 4.3 million, 21% drop. This one's kind of having a little bit of a boom because of its Best Picture nomination. So it is in, what's interesting about this one? So it added 200 theaters this weekend, probably because of the nomination. Per theater average was $1,600. It has made 55.8 million in its 12th weekend in release. It's just a typical sort of awards run for a movie. Starts out really small, gets word of mouth, adds theaters, more and more theaters. And then we get to this point where it's a full wide release in 2,600 theaters, almost 2,700 theaters almost. Okay, so what's the story in Green Book? $23 million production budget. There's a lot of controversy with this one. It's going to happen when a smaller kind of artier movie that deals with race gets popular. It's going to happen. There's going to be critics. So that's kind of a negative against the film, but it actually, from a PR perspective, helps it because it gets its name out there a little bit more and has people talking about it. Even if it's in the negative sense, it's like it's still building awareness for a movie that people didn't even know existed a month ago. So that's what's happening with that. I don't know where it goes here. I don't know if it's going to win Best Picture. I don't think that it's going to. But you never know. It did win the Golden Globe, and people were pissed about that. And so that also helped its sort of PR and awareness. I don't think people are avoiding it because of the controversy. I think people are sort of seeking it out. So Green Book should have a good little weird awards run here through the end of February. I think the Oscars are in 3 weeks, I think, maybe 4 weeks. I think it's 3. So it's going to do okay for the next 3 weeks, it seems like. Are they going to expand it more? They might. It's already at a full expansion, though, so I don't see them pushing it past 3,000. The per theater average at 1,600 is kind of good enough to keep it around in the 2,000 mark, but it might actually start to fade before the Oscars and start dropping below the 2,000 theater mark, so we'll see on that one. Number 7 was The Kid Would Be King in its second weekend. I didn't cover this one last weekend because I was out. 4.2 million, a 41% drop. Per theater average was terrible at 1,200. This one's a huge flop. 13.1 million for this Fox children's movie. It looked kind of cool. King Arthur, Knights of the Round Table. I just don't think that's a palatable or story that really draws people in anymore. I think younger generations, for whatever reason, are just not interested in the King Arthur story. They have Game of Thrones instead. And so The Kid Would Be King, I don't know, also kind of felt dumped in January. That drop is okay, but kind of feels high for a children's movie in its second weekend. So not a good performance at all for the kid who would be king. Number 8 was A Dog's Way Home, another family movie. This one's from Sony. 3.5 million, a 31% drop. Per theater average is sitting almost identical to I cannot say The Kid Who Would Be King. I don't know what the hell is wrong with me. At about $1,100, almost $1,200 per theater for A Dog's Way Home. 35.9 million total take so far in its fourth weekend. This has been out for 4 weekends. How is that even remotely possible? $18 million production budget. What's the story in this? Okay performance. I would definitely put it in as an underperformance. It didn't pop off. It didn't connect with audiences. The drops are good. 31% drop compared to The Kid Who Would Be King at 41% drop. So it's doing okay, but I don't know if it's going to make any money. It didn't seem like it's going to. So that was number 8. Number 9 was Escape Room. Another kind of bigger story of the year so far, 2019, is the quiet but exceptional run of Escape Room. This is a little horror movie from Sony, obviously about the popular sort of, what do you call that? Is that a leisure activity? What would you call that? It's like an amusement activity. I don't even know what the hell you call it. You go into a room with a group of people and you try to escape. It's a fun thing, and every major city has one now. I guess it's like a theme park, but it's not really a park. I don't even know what you call it. It's almost like it's similar to laser tag, or going to like a Chuck E. Cheese. I don't know what you call those things. Games and fun. It's a games and fun movie, but it's also a horror movie. So 2.9 million, 30% drop. Great drop, man. 30% drop in its 5th weekend for a horror movie. What is going on? Per theater average is strong too, $1,500 per theater. It lost 250 theaters this weekend, but it's still in 2,000. Total take so far for Escape Room is 52 million bucks. That's fantastic. I mean, that's a really, if I'm looking at like the top 10 right now, the big stories from 2019 so far, Glass really underperforming, Upside overperforming, Escape Room just proves that like the January horror thing works. If you have a good movie and people like it, they will show up over and over again. And so like those are the bigger stories from 2019 so far. Number 10 this weekend was They Shall Not Grow Old. This is a World War I doc from Peter Jackson, 2.4 million. Really strong performance on this one, I think, overall. $3,200 per theater, 10.7 million in its 7th weekend. I don't even think they were going to do a domestic US release on this one. I think it was just UK, but it did so well in the UK that I think they brought it over here and it really popped off on limited release, so they decided to go a little bit wider. It's only in 735 theaters. Every other movie out is on over 2,000 theaters essentially in the top 10. This one's the only one under 1,000. So a really great performance for that one. Okay, so that's the top 10. Kind of a quicker one. Not a lot going on this weekend. Like I said, Glass underperforming is the big story. The Upside doing great in its 4th weekend. Miss Bala kind of, I wouldn't call Miss Bala a flop because the expectations weren't really that high. What could Sony expect in a January release for something like this? I think 7's okay. I just don't think it's a bad business decision to put it out theatrically. Spider-Man, Aquaman holding strong. Green Book having its Academy Awards boost. Keep in mind, no other, as I'm looking through this, no other Best Picture nominees in the top 10. Just sort of take that for what it's worth. That will help its prospects when people are voting on Green Book for the Best Picture. Box office does matter and does have an effect. It's not like the primary thing, but it does help a movie win awards if it does well. And then Escape Room having a cool January horror run for Sony. So that's the top 10. Mary Poppins Returns was at 11, just trying to shuffle its way at $170 million. Man, Mary Floppins, I don't get it. I could talk about that one for probably for weeks and not understand what the hell's going on. I still just don't get why people didn't show up for that. It's like the perfect family, perfect holiday, perfect January holdover, and it just didn't happen. Bohemian Rhapsody still doing well, broke the $200 million mark this week. Serenity, which is a movie I did not talk about last weekend. I really want to see this. This has like mid-90s sex thriller bomb written all over it, and it was a bomb. 1.7 million in second weekend. Per theater average in second weekend on over 2,500 theaters, $664. Anne Hathaway and Matthew McConaughey I believe are suing the distributor on this one. Basically what happened was the distributor basically promised that, hey, we're going to do a full marketing campaign, prints an advertising budget, right? P&A. That didn't happen. And so Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway, I guess, are really pissed and want to sue. I don't know. It's supposedly a terrible movie. I don't know how bad could it possibly be, like compared to a lot of the shit that's out there. Like, I want to go see it. It looks fun. It looks like totally bizarre and interesting. Now, is it a really good, like, high art masterpiece? Of course it's not. But, like, no one's going to expect that going in. They expect, like, a sex dimension 1993 thriller. Like, that's what we want. Give us what we want. Body heat over here. So Serenity is just a total disaster on release. That kind of feels also like a straight to streaming movie as well. Like, play that on like an HBO on like a Saturday night and people will love it. What else? The Favorite, possible Best Picture winner, can't even do 1,000 per theater in its 11th weekend tier. 1,500 theaters. I don't think it's going to win because of that. Maybe, I don't know. Because you gotta remember, the Academy is like, it's made up of industry people in the Producers Guild, the Directors Guild. They all vote on those movies. So it's a very insular group of people. Maybe they've probably all seen their favorite. They probably all love it. So maybe its poor box office performance isn't going to hurt it that much. What else? Vice is sitting at $44 million. An okay run, not a great run. The Mule broke $100 million this week. A great milestone for Clint Eastwood. I could bash him all day long on his movies, but like he turns people, he gets people to put money down to see his movies. Stars Born, $207 million. right now. Stan and Ollie collapsed. Steve Coogan and John C. Reilly, Laurel and Hardy biopic about the later part of their career has done nothing. 3.6 million in its sixth weekend. I think that's mostly it. Cold War, I guess, got pushed out a little bit more because of the Best Director nomination. It's in 200 theaters, doing okay, 2,600 per theater. For that movie, it's sitting at 2.1 million so far for Cold War. That one just did not connect with domestic audiences at all. Maybe it's the language part of it, the language barrier. I don't know. People didn't show up for that. I think Amazon really blew the marketing campaign on that. It had really great trailers. The visuals are just beautiful. It's one of my favorite movies last year, but no audience for it domestically, apparently. Or at least Amazon couldn't find them. If Beale Street Could Talk, Annapurna, God, terrible. Well, it's not the worst performance in the world. 13.2 million in its eighth weekend. I wish they would have pushed that one more. I heard that they only had enough money to push Vice for awards, and that's what happened. Destroyer, also from Annapurna, 1.2 million. I hear that's also amazing, but like no one's heard of that one because Annapurna doesn't have any money to market it. I think that's mostly it. Anything else? Top? No, that's mostly it. So I'm looking at, like, if I'm just do a quick like awards check-in, folks, get ready for Green Book to be Best Picture because no one's seen it's basically, I think it's between The Favorite, Green Book, and Roma. Roma still probably has the edge because all the industry people just gush over that movie, and it's got total access on Netflix, so there's no like screener to send out, there's no like signing into some special website to see it. So that really helps Roma a lot, just because there's this super high awareness, total access to it, and it's also a really good movie. I didn't love it. I don't know if I really understand Roma as much as other people do. It didn't connect with me emotionally, and so I don't know. I didn't think it was the best movie at all this year. But so Green Book, Roma, and The Favorite, I'd say the three top runners for Best Picture. I think it's really between Roma and Green Book. I think Roma's probably going to take it now that I'm thinking about it a little bit closer because of who votes. But Green Book's box office sort of performance, it's blowing away the other Best Picture noms, except for like whatever, Black Panther and like, did Bohemian Rhapsody get nominated? There's no way that wins. No way Bohemian Rhapsody Best Picture. I'm not even considering it. Based on the three front runners, Green Book has a much better box office performance, and I think that helps a ton with its potential win. I still think it goes to Roma, but Green Book would not surprise me because it's kind of like that. If Roma is, and just to think in terms of like food and meals, if Roma is like a great meal at like $100 per plate steakhouse or whatever, like a really fancy nice restaurant, French bistro, that's what Roma is. Green Book is like a great sort of, I don't want to say Applebee's, but like it's definitely more of a really good meal at like a $30 per plate, or like maybe like a $20 per plate place, right? Just very different types of movies and very, very different goals, very different audiences. Roma is a little bit more sort of fine-tuned towards the Academy of voter palate, but I think the Academy people sometimes like to feel like they're with the great masses who are not in the industry, and so they might vote for Green Book. I don't know, we'll see. But that's coming up in a few weeks. Okay, so that's top 10. That's a little bit of awards chatter. Let's talk about what's coming out over the next few weeks and close out the show. Next weekend's going to be a lot of fun. Unfortunately, I'm going to be gone again, so I won't be able to do a show. But the weekend after, I'll try and cover a lot of these. It's going to be kind of a cool couple of 2 weeks because we are in a holiday season. Valentine's Day is a blockbuster box office holiday now. Has been for the last few years. I don't see that going away anytime soon. This weekend coming up, we have Cold Pursuit, which is a Liam Neeson taken as a snowplow driver. Looks awesome. They're playing up a comedy angle on the marketing I saw last night on the trailers, like on TV. like, oh, it's really funny. I was like, I thought it was an action movie. So that one, I don't know what's going on with that. I have no idea how it's going to play. I think it's going to do quite well just because hasn't been a ton out in January. So I think people are clamoring for something stupid and fun. And that's what Cold Pursuit is. The Behemoth next weekend is Lego 2, Movie 2, the second part, opening up over 4,000 theaters from Warner Brothers. The buzz I hear is like 50 to 60 million opening weekend on that. I think it could go higher just because it's been so quiet. I'm thinking more like 60, 70-ish. I think like 65 is probably my gut guess right now. So that's going to be the big winner next weekend. The Prodigy, a small little horror film from Orion Pictures, which is now back. Pretty good trailer on that one. Good actors and that. It looks okay. How many times have we seen that movie, The Omen, done the 10,000th time? Like, I don't know. It's hard. I don't know how people are going to show up to that versus Cold Pursuit or Lego Movie. It might play to like the under 25 male crowd. But I think that's in direct competition with Cold Pursuit. So like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Orion Pictures putting this out now. Like, why? Like, wait. Just wait until... Oh, I know why. So if you look at February, they should have done this weekend for the Prodigy. This weekend would have been perfect. Sure, you got the Super Bowl, but at least you have a wide open spot because it's not going to compete with Miss Bala. Next weekend, the Prodigy competes with Cold Pursuit. The weekend after is Alita Battle Angel, which I think will compete with that. And then it's Happy Death Day to You. So I can kind of see, I would have waited. And then you got at least 2 weeks of Happy Death Day to You holding that. I would have pushed it to March maybe. And then you got Captain Marvel. So I could, it's a really tough to slot that movie in somewhere. But I would have done this weekend. So the Prodigy comes out next weekend. What Men Want from Paramount, opening up in 2,800 theaters. I think that's going to play really strong. I'm just like randomly hearing people talk around here in St. Louis. Like I've heard multiple people mention it. So I feel like it's going to have a really strong performance. So I think next weekend, it's probably going to go Lego Movie 2 in the 60s, Cold Pursuit, probably What Men Want, and I want to say the 30s, Cold Pursuit in the 20s, Prodigy probably in the teens. That's how I see it playing out. And then next weekend, the weekend after that, I guess Wednesday the 13th, you have Alita Battle Angel, which who knows what that's going to do. I have no idea what's that going to. It could open at like 10. It could open at like 50. I have no clue. James Cameron's, going around hawking this movie. I have no idea. I have 2 cups for it so far. Marcus Theaters was doing a promotion for it. So I know about it. That's the only reason I really know about it. I saw the trailer. It looks kind of interesting and cool. It got pushed, I believe, I want to say. Maybe it wasn't pushed. I thought it was going to come out in the fall. I don't know. But I think it's going to do okay. I just don't have a good read on it. We'll see. It's really going to depend on the reviews, I feel like. You have something there where it could do well. The early buzz has kind of been all over the place. Some people are gushing about it. Some people are saying it's terrible. Once like all the reviews come in, we can get a better picture of that one. And then also on the 13th, I don't know why Alita is listed as separate here. Also on the 13th is Happy Death Day to You and Isn't It Romantic? Both look kind of interesting to me. I'm going to see both of them. Isn't It Romantic is like a postmodern take on rom-coms. It seems a little bit like a Stranger Than Fiction type romantic comedy where she's in a rom-com movie. Yeah. Inception, let's go deeper. Happy Death Day to You should do fantastic. The original is a lot of fun. They turned this around super quick. Happy Death Day to You was just on FX last night. It's just like a fun, stupid horror movie. And that's what Universal Blumhouse does so well with these. So I think it's going to do well. On the close out February, How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, which I hear is doing very well in pre-sales. And there's like a preview, I think. Sold out like hundreds of theaters. So that should do really strong end of February. And then we're into March with Captain Marvel coming out March 8th. So I think overall February looks like a lot of fun, to be honest with you. A lot more fun than this January. I'm excited to watch what Cold Pursuit does, Alita, and Happy Death Day to You. I think those are the 3 I want to watch the most closely. Okay, thanks folks. This is the Wildline Podcast. I won't be back next weekend because I'm out of town, but I will be back for the weekend of, I guess that's Valentine's Day weekend. Yeah, I'll be back probably the 17th of February. Thanks for listening.